The Triple Berry Cafe of Crystal Lake offers incredible breakfast and lunch options for you, and now the coffee bar is open for you to enjoy. Stop in and enjoy a relaxing cup of coffee in a peaceful setting, and if you're hungry, the Triple Berry Cafe is ready to provide you with homemade goodness. Enjoy omelets, skillets, pancakes, crepes, waffles, and much more for breakfast. Stop in at the Triple Berry Cafe for lunch and enjoy signature sandwiches, burgers, wraps, salads, and healthy options are available as well. Triple Berry Cafe, just off Randall Road in Crystal Lake. Now with a coffee bar. The Triple Berry Cafe of Crystal Lake offers incredible breakfast and lunch options for you, and now the coffee bar is open for you to enjoy. Stop in and enjoy a relaxing cup of coffee in a peaceful setting, and if you're hungry, the Triple Berry Cafe is ready to provide you with homemade goodness. Enjoy omelets, skillets, pancakes, crepes, waffles, and much more for breakfast. Stop in at the Triple Berry Cafe for lunch and enjoy signature sandwiches, burgers, wraps, salads, and healthy options are available as well. Triple Berry Cafe, just off Randall Road in Crystal Lake. Now with a coffee bar.
This is the truth about Chicago sports. 1410 WRMN in Elgin, Illinois, Studio 14.
And the voice you hear there is the main host of The Truth About Chicago Sports, Marcus Mack, joining us via phone. Marcus, how's it going, man?
How's it going, guys? I'm so glad you guys could steer the ship while I'm currently away. I'm enjoying a little blues festival in Greenville, Mississippi, and let's get the show going.
Absolutely. Well, of course, we have Bears talk first and foremost. Last week did not quite go the Bears' way, a 19-13 loss to the Houston Texans in Houston's home opener. I think the Bears put up quite the fight, though. It's just this offense is still struggling to get the ball rolling. Marcus, what were your takes from this loss, putting the Bears at 1-1 on the season?
Well, we thought this was exactly where the Bears were supposed to be, at 1-1. I think most of us, even the true diehards, had the Bears losing this game to the Texans, which is honestly potentially a Super Bowl contender. But the Bears defense kept them in once again. I did see Caleb improve dramatically from week one. He looked good until DeMeco Ryans recognized that the Bears offensive line couldn't stop me and you if we decided to do a blitz. And once that started to happen, the dogs were set loose. The Bears fell behind. Caleb passed the ball way too much. A completely ineffective running game left us one-dimensional, and a superior Texan team was able to hold on to a narrow victory. This was a one-score game, and if you noticed, there was a ton of frustration from the Bears' offensive players because they knew it. They knew this game was on them.
Okay, Marcus, and I'm sorry, this is Derek. I think you know that this is Derek.
Yeah, to all the folks out there, if you're just tuning in, this is still the correct hour for Truth About Chicago Sports. If you are still with us from the first 2 hours, yes, we do look like we are on the rise because it's myself, Mike Napolitano, and Derek Geyer. But we are filling in studio for Marcus Mack here on AM 1410 WRMN. But it is still Marcus's show, of course. This is The Truth About Chicago Sports. We're going to go pro side of sports now, not amateur pro. And, of course, we have Bears talk. But, Derek, you were going to chime in about this Bears loss to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, well, Marcus, if my memory is not at all hazy from maybe a little too many cocktails last night, I thought that you had actually picked the Bears to win last week.
Yep. And if you remember my score, I believe I said 24-21.
I thought it was a little bit more elevated than that, but yeah.
Maybe 27-21.
I'll let you have it. That's all right.
Now, Houston only scored 19, so I was 2 points off on that. If my team comes through, Rome catches that touchdown in the end zone instead of dropping it, a couple of interceptions down the fourth quarter, maybe this should have been forced, I think I would have probably got close to my final score, buddy.
Yeah, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And if the Bears offensive line didn't look like Swiss cheese or a GD turnstile, then maybe it would have been, what you had predicted. But God, that was absolutely brutal watching that offensive line.
Brutal. 7 sacks. The young kid got hit 7 times and he took sacks. That's not including all the extra hits that he got. The one where he got the late hit, which should have been called where he was going out of bounds, which I thought was ridiculous. And, yeah, just too much. Too much. The offensive line just gave up way too much, and these guys just were unleashed on Caleb. And we saw the results. It was a very, very porous offensive display. I actually got a little insider off the record a tip from a former Bears coach. We'll talk about that later in the show. That I asked him, what could the Bears do to fix their offensive line issues? You'll be very interested in what he had to say. We're going to talk about that later, though, down after our first break. But what we saw on hand was a complete onslaught on Caleb because they realized that 2 key positions, center and right guard, that's Shelton and Nate Davis, can't recognize a gap stunt blitz. And It was pathetic. It was pathetic. Mike, what did you think when you saw that offensive display?
Well, you talk about the issues, and they're ever so prevalent here for this Bears team. When you look at the stats, especially Caleb Williams, 23 for 37 attempts, 174 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and then you mentioned those 7 sacks on the 40 plays. If you look at the other side of things for C.J. Stroud in Houston, 23 for 36 for attempts, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He only was sacked 3 times of the 25 times. But we break down that Bears offense a little bit more. I'm just going to run some stats by you that are absolutely humiliating for this Chicago offense. 22 possessions. They have 1 touchdown to show for it. They have the 2nd most punts in the league. And you want to talk about going back to Caleb Williams being drafted just a little bit before Torrey Taylor, the new punter. And then he sent him that text that said, hey, you're not going to punt much here. Well, I don't know about that. This is the 2nd most punts in the league coming from the Bears. 177 yards per game the Bears are averaging. That's ranked 31st out of 32 teams. And you mentioned those 7 sacks this week. Well, altogether, 9 sacks allowed in just these first 2 weeks. That is league worst. So this offense, I mean, you'd have a better job throwing Swiss cheese on that front line.
So what you're telling me is this offensive is worse than the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, that's what the stats show.
Oh.
They're just as bad. I'm not going to say they're worse than the Panthers, but they're just as bad. And here's the problem, too. When you look at the PFF grades on the line, Braxton Jones is dead last in win-block rate ratio. And Darnell Wright right now is 50, I want to say he's 58 out of the 62 tackles that are starting tackles that have been rated in the league. And that's the problem. I should say 64, I'm sorry. 64 tackles have been rated in the league based off of 32 teams, 2 tackles on each side of the ball. And that's disturbing. That's disturbing. When your tackles are grading that low, on top of the fact that you have very, very, very amateur play coming out of your center and your right guard position. And that's right. That's the glaring hole that I just can't get past. Yes, Caleb missed passes. He's a rookie. I really feel like he's going to get better with time.
God, I hope so.
But the lack of opening up a run game and then not being able to recognize simple blitz packages is a real problem. And if the Bears don't do so, because here's the thing, guys, there's no offensive lineman on the street. It doesn't work that way. You got kickers hanging out there, you got quarterbacks hanging around, you even got some running backs you can go kick the dust off their tires. But there's no big, strong dudes just hanging out, ready to take on defensive linemen. So the Bears missed the boat in the offseason, and it's a real concern right now. They put too much faith in Nate Davis, and honestly, with I think the guy that got hurt, Ryan. I can't think of his last name. I'm blanking on it, but he's right now on the bench. They traded from him from the Bills. He was supposed to be the starting center, and that's hurting the team as well right now because Shelton clearly is not up to stuff.
Well, and you mentioned you think that Caleb Williams is going to get better with time, and I know the time that you're talking about is throughout his years, but also just with more time in the pocket. I mean, you could look at that, your statement both ways. It's kind of a double entendre because this offensive line just doesn't give Caleb the time to display the talents that he has. And I know I'm putting a lot on this offensive line right now, and you talked about it as well. But the thing is it's collectively an entire offensive issue. I mean, it starts with the line, but it's also Caleb being a little young and inexperienced and not being able to find his receivers as quickly as he needs to, not seeing how to scramble. I was at that preseason game, and I think the entire crowd was screaming for Caleb to go to his left, and he didn't identify the fact that he was able to run it in for the touchdown himself. Now, it was a phenomenal play, and he shook off 2 defenders, and it looked like he was sidestepping the entire Bengals defense. But at the same time, he could have made that play without the spin move maybe a couple seconds earlier, and that's just preseason we're talking about. And you know, we jumped into these first 2 weeks, and we've seen how Caleb's been performing. And I think the part of the talk throughout, you know, of course, the talking heads on ESPN and every Chicago outlet has been saying, like, welcome to the NFL, Caleb. And one of the biggest talking points in this town about this Bears offense has been, well, okay, is Caleb still the guy? And I think it's still too early. Like you said, we need to see him develop with time. But like you said, that you can't just pick up offensive linemen off the street. One of the other big points that I've heard throughout the news this past week is, you know, Ryan Poles was an offensive lineman. And for them to not have guys that can get that position squared away and secure, and Bears fans feel comfortable with this offensive line, and that is an understatement. That is a glaring issue. I mean, that should be a position. You talk about other sports, catchers in baseball, when they go on to become managers, you see a team that has typically pretty good pitching and pretty good catching, and it is led by the catching because you have a manager that has the experience at that position. Ryan Poles, I mean, I know he's GM and not manager here, but something's going wrong here with this offensive line. These players aren't living up to the expectations, and then I don't know if it's a combination of I've heard a lot of talk for Shane Waldron's head already. You know, this offensive coordinator is either not getting the job done or these players just aren't executing. The one that you were mentioning is supposed to be the center is Ryan Bates, who is injured. He's got a
Ryan Bates.
shoulder/elbow injury, and he was placed on the IR as of last Saturday. I think that's an updated stat because I don't think he was in week 1 either, but I'm not sure. There's not really a timetable for him to be coming back to this Bears team anytime soon. So how do they fix this issue?
They can't right now, and that's the problem, is that they have to go with what they have. And Ryan Poles, he deserves a lot of the blame in some regard. Remember this fact. Before we go down this rabbit hole too deep, let's remember this is still only 2 games, and this is a rookie quarterback that everybody knew it was going to take time for him to acclimate to the NFL. And so our real judgment of Caleb can't come, unfortunately, until after game 17. And so we're just going to have to, live with the week-to-week thing before we can say anything, whether he is the real deal or not. So I just want to keep that in mind. Now, let's go down the rabbit hole. You talk about Poles and his mistakes. Big facts. In the offseason, did not do enough for that offensive line. Put way too much faith in Nate Davis coming back in shape and ready to practice when you saw how he acted last year when you had brought him to the team as a first-year free agent. So why would you think that would change in his second year? Other big mistakes. You go into the draft knowing that you need depth in the trenches, and yet you draft an injured offensive tackle in the 3rd round from Yale, and you turn around and you draft a punter in the 4th round that you probably could have got in the 5th. So right there alone, why no offensive guard? Why no center in those rounds? So, yes, the blame does fall in a lot of ways on Ryan Poles currently at this point, because right now you have to go with what you have. You have to hope that the coaching sinks in, that the technique gets better, and that they're able to provide a more protective wall for this young QB, because this is his welcome to the NFL moment. And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. If he didn't have the weapons that he did have, so I will give Ryan Poles, I will give him credit for that, for giving him Roma Tuesday and Keelan Allen and having DJ Moore there. If he didn't have those weapons, the Bears wouldn't be 1-1 with that porous offensive line.
Yeah, considering they kept themselves pretty close with this tough Houston team. But then I did go and talk about how Chicago has punted quite a bit on these possessions. 55% exactly of those possessions the Bears have punted on. I wanted to bring up a post from a mutual friend of ours, Brandon Combs. He posted, and I thought this was very interesting, quarterbacks who threw for less yards than Caleb Williams in week 2. You have Patrick Mahomes, it's a pretty big name right there, Jacoby Brissett, Tua Tagovailoa, but there's an asterisk there because, Tua got injured, and, hope he's doing well. Yet another concussion for that young man. But Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Malik Willis, Justin Fields, and Bryce Young. Now, another thing in this same post, quarterbacks who had less completions than Caleb Williams in week 2. Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes again, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, and 12 other starters. That's a lot of big names there. And I know guys like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens had a tough year. We brought that up with Nick on our previous show. And, some of these other quarterbacks maybe just didn't get the job done. But that's a lot of good company to be in for Caleb. And it shows that it might not be entirely Caleb's fault, even with this young inexperience in the NFL. Sorry.
Wrong sport.
Yeah, I'm so used to it. And then quarterbacks that had more pressures and more sacks and running backs with less yards than Caleb Williams in week 2, not a single one of them. So Caleb Williams is on this island by himself in that final stat, which is why he is in the mecca of both of those first two stats, I believe.
Yeah, and considering the fact that the Bears only have 267 yards of passing through the first 2 games, the only team worse than the Bears is the previously mentioned Carolina Panthers with 245 yards. I mean, they're in the bottom league. They're in the bottom of the league in offensive passing. They're probably one of the worst teams in the league. So until you get that offensive line addressed, and I'm not really sure that there's a whole hell of a lot that you can do at this point of the year other than maybe giving up a draft pick to potentially secure an offensive lineman that is on the last year or the last year of a contract or whatever. I mean, that's the only way that I could see this going. And being that Poles is a former lineman, should potentially know what a decent offensive lineman is, unless he's looking at the qualities that he himself had as an offensive lineman that didn't really make it as an offensive lineman in the league.
Well, here's the issue is that no team is going to trade with you right now. It's still too early. Nobody's thrown in the towel, including the Carolina Panthers. No team is thrown in the towel after 2 games, and no team is giving up a good, viable offensive lineman unless you pay a pretty good price.
Sure.
And the Bears don't want to pay that price. We know that. And no team is willing to part ways right now with 2 games in the season. So before we can even get to the trade crossroad, we might be talking at least 6 games in the season before a team even entertains that. So right now, there's no help. In the current form where we're at in this current moment, there's no help coming. It's up to the coaches to get these players and their technique more sound. It's up to the coaches to try to get the best out of what they've got in front of them, because this is what it is 2 games in. And I love Mike reading off those stats there about the other quarterbacks and their struggles to begin the season. Now, if you remember my Mac attack last week, what did I say? The first 2 games of the season now, are the new preseason. And so that's all a direct correlation of sloppy play. But the problem is with that stat, Mike, Caleb isn't a veteran. He's a rookie, and he's around sloppy play already. Mahomes will get it together. His team, the sloppy play will stop. It will get to the point where they will start to come into form. But can we say that honestly with our hearts about the Bears' offensive line? Do we think they're going to come into form? And that's where our worry truly is at.
Yeah, there were some other rookies on the list. Bryce Young, and then also Brandon mentioned that he just said, and 12 other starters had less completions than Caleb Williams, which I imagine some of those 12 other starters were rookies. But I totally agree with your point that, there's more of a microscope here on Caleb Williams, and not only does he have pressure when he is on the field and that offensive line is letting guys through, but he has pressure off the field more so than probably any of these other quarterbacks because of the fact that the Bears have had such an extended list of failures at quarterback. And now he has to rise up here and become the answer, the savior for this Chicago team. And I think, like you said earlier on, too much was put on his shoulder. Well, not necessarily too much put on. Too much focus was put on him rather than the line in front of him, especially in the draft and during this offseason.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, Mike, because there was a lot of pressure put on him. He was supposed to be the guy, the generational talent to come in, lead the Bears to the next, 15 for the next 15 years, Super Bowl after Super Bowl, playoff appearance after playoff appearance, and my weary Chicago Bears eyes, it's the same damn movie over and over and over again.
Well, I'm not saying he can't get there. I'm just,
right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying right now. I mean, when you got Mitch Trubisky, then you got Fields, and now Caleb. And
Fields is having some success, and I think we get into that comparison once again, and everybody's going to say, "Oh,
sure,
look, Fields was the better option." Not necessarily. No. But, there's always going to be that comparison there. I think Fields could have gotten a better shake here in Chicago.
Should've.
And I just hope that this isn't the same case with Caleb Williams. This Bears team as a whole needs to be more than just who your quarterback is. I know in football we struggle with a lot of, who's their quarterback? I mean, the face of the New England Patriots was Tom Brady. The face of the Green Bay Packers for the longest time was Aaron Rodgers. Now it's kind of Jordan Love, but for this Bears team to work, they can't just focus on who their quarterback is. They don't have the team around them that can carry them to the playoffs, and then just throw in a generational talent like an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady. Like I said, I didn't misspeak right there. I think Caleb Williams can be in that company and be considered a generational talent, but that involves him staying healthy. I also mentioned Tua Tagovailoa earlier, and if Caleb Williams keeps getting hit and sacked behind the line, he may be your next Tua. And I said the same thing with Justin Fields. There was no offensive line in front of him. He ran the ball a little too much for my liking and put himself in harm's way a lot of these times. And as a Bears organization, you're going to get your star quarterback injured if you don't make the right moves around them. And I'm unfortunately, thus far, I'm a little worried that this is happening again for the Bears.
And when you brought up Shane Waldron in the very beginning with being the new OC of the Bears, and their wait-and-see attitude, and we're still trying to figure things out. Well, damn it, it's week 3. You've already gone through week 2 with that poor-ass performance that you had. Figure it out. Make the in-game adjustments. The defense is making those adjustments. So what are you doing on the offensive side of the ball? Figure that shiatsu out.
And we're going to be back here on The Truth About Chicago Sports right after a couple messages. Still talking about the Chicago Bears. We will be still joined by Marcus Mack. We have to get into the next week matchup, well, this weekend, against the Indianapolis Colts. We'll give you a little bit more recap about this week 2 against the Texans, and then also bring you our thoughts on that last point Derek just made about Shane Waldron, some of the offense, and get into maybe some of the lighter points for this Bears team right here on AM 1410 WRMN.
the open road and experience the fresh air of Wisconsin at the Grand Stay Hotel and Suites in Mount Horeb. This award-winning hotel is just outside Madison. Mount Horeb is known as the troll capital of the world. Families can go on a troll hunt through the historic downtown or check out Cave of the Mounds just minutes down the road. The Grand Stay offers a beautiful pool and a hot tub with year-round fun. Visit grandstaymounthoreb.com today to schedule your visit.
Be sure to catch the First Shift weekday mornings from 6 to 10 a.m. for important information like fire tips from Elgin Fire Chief Rob Sagan.
The thing in the winter that we're more concerned with is carbon monoxide, because that we don't get in the summer. That carbon monoxide issues occur because of heating equipment. Anything that burns natural gas, if it is faulty, can generate high levels of carbon monoxide, which in time can be fatal. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of having carbon monoxide detectors in your home. Every single year you will see somewhere in the country, and usually we'll get one or two in the Chicagoland area, where you'll see multiple fatalities in one home. You can't smell carbon monoxide, you can't taste carbon monoxide, you have no idea it's happening. And so it's critically important that you have the right detectors in your home.
It's the First Shift weekday mornings at 6 a.m. with me, Marky B, right here on WRMN. Renata's Old Salem Cafe is now Renata's German restaurant, with old family recipes for delicious Bavarian dinners. Renata's is also known for breakfast and lunch. Renata's German restaurant has fresh baked German pastries. For a hearty breakfast, try Renata's for pancakes, skillets, and more. They've also set the standard for catering excellence. Try Renata's German restaurant off Irving Park, west of Wise Road in Hanover Park. Visit renatasgermanrestaurant.com.
Looking to stay informed on the political issues that truly matter? I'm Dennis Sonar Green, inviting you to join me every weekday from 4 to 6 p.m. on WRMN for A Political Talk Show. WRMN, the talk of the town, is where you'll find clear, balanced analysis of the day's biggest news. We dig into the headlines, cutting through the noise to deliver the facts and insights you need to stay informed. Whether you're deeply into politics or just want to understand what's going on, this show offers the depth and perspectives that matter. Tune in every weekday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on WRMN and be part of the conversation that's shaping our community. Let's navigate today's political landscape together on A Political Talk Show, only on WRMN, the talk of the town.
Michael Brown, former Undersecretary of Homeland Security and Director of FEMA, is your new full-time host of The Weekend, which airs every Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. right here on WRMN. Each week on the popular 3-hour program, Brown offers listeners a fresh take on the weekend talk with his provocative insights into current events, politics, and culture. So late in the day on Saturday, make it a point to catch The Weekend with Michael Brown right here on WRMN, AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Ever take your car through the auto emissions lane only to experience the sinking feeling that your car has failed the test? Don't fret. Let Meineke at 376 Sundown in South Elgin fix the problem for you. Meineke's mechanics will determine the exact problem with your vehicle and suggest necessary repairs with Meineke's diagnostic service. Pass that test with help from the trained Meineke technicians. Call today for your appointment. 847-888-9644. That's 847-888-9644.
Yeah, and welcome back to the show. This is The Truth About Chicago Sports. I'm joined with the Derek and Mike. Marcus Mack bringing you the Sports Hour 10 to 12, 1410 WRMN, Elgin, Illinois, in Studio 14. And welcome back, guys. So we were left off talking about the Bears and their situation at the offensive line, and I gave you guys a teaser. And I said that I had a off-the-record report from a former Bears coach. Are you guys ready for this?
No, but go ahead anyway.
All right. So, and we mentioned our guy earlier, too. Shouts out to Brandon Combs, who's doing great things over at Odyssey. He messaged me and he said, hey, man, I'm sitting with the former coach, and he asked me if I had a question for him. Like, thank you, of course, off the record, so that's why no names will be said. I asked him point blank. I said, can the Bears fix their O-line issues this season? And he told me, off the record, they don't have enough talent to fix it with the guys they currently have. They need more talent. And that's a former Bears coach giving his assessment about what's going on with the Bears offensive line. And I have to agree with that wholeheartedly. Like we were talking about, you can't get, there's no big guys laying around on the street that can block for you. Right now, trade is not an option. So really what we're looking at is that this cannot get fixed until the offseason.
Wow.
And that's what we're left at. We're left that this cannot be fixed. We pretty much are stuck with what we got. And I don't know. I don't have the confidence currently to think that we have enough. And this could really be detrimental to what I feel is a very great opportunity considering the defense that we have.
Well, on that aspect, Marcus, we're going to play a little clip here with Caleb Williams and C.J. Stroud after the game, this past game, real quick. Hold on.
Hey, good job out there, bro. Yeah, hey, keep going. Stop taking those hits. Yeah, I know. Hey, learn from those mistakes, and everything that you got, bro, is in you already, bro. You're gonna be a hell of a player in this league. Yeah. All right, boy. Appreciate it. For sure. Keep going, man. Hey, good job out there, bro. Yeah.
And that was after the Bears and Texas played. You got C.J. Stroud talking to Caleb, tell him to keep on doing what he's doing, and he also said, be safe, or I'm paraphrasing, be safe, because I can't remember what just happened like 30 seconds ago.
He told him, don't take those hits as much.
Yeah,
take less hits.
Stop taking
the hits. Stop taking those hits. And a lot of Bears fans were up in arms about him giving Caleb notes like that. Oh, don't you be talking to our quarterback like that.
Trying to sign him, and yeah, he's on the same level as you.
That's crazy. And it was good advice from a guy who's been in the league a little bit longer, and a guy who probably firsthand understands, don't take those hits. And I think, if it wasn't C.J. Stroud and it was Justin Fields, I think it would have caused an even bigger uproar in the fact that, like we talk about, there's still that comparison there. It's still fresh in everybody's minds that Justin Fields was the QB1 here. But if it was him giving him that advice, I would trust it just as much. I mean, look at what happened with Justin here in Chicago and how Fields was hit. I mean, granted, a lot more of it was his own doing running the ball, and less of the offensive line, I think. But you're talking, a guy that's been here longer, especially literally has been here in Chicago, giving him that advice. It's the same as C.J. Stroud saying, hey, don't get yourself injured. I brought it up in that first segment. I'm going to bring it up again here. Look at Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, this is, time number 4 that he's out with a concussion? I mean, it's a guy that has no protection and gets put in these situations where he's too fragile. I don't mean that as any disrespect towards him, but he is your quarterback. If you can't protect, it's chess. If you can't protect the king in chess, you've lost the game. And not only do you lose the game, you could lose your king.
Quit taking those hits. I think that was the biggest point out of that. And like you said, I just felt like that was tremendous advice to give. And I get the uproar was more about that they felt like CJ was sunning Caleb, like treating him like a little brother rather than treating him as a contemporary. But the fact of it is that CJ has had success in this league from the moment he stepped onto the field and already looking like this season as well. So I think that Caleb, just like any other professional, you take any advice from someone that is successful in the league, bottom line. Caleb was annoyed clearly because he had just lost. It had nothing to do with the advice that he was given. He was mad because he knew that all it took was a play for them to possibly have won that game. And he's a competitor.
Yep.
That's what I wanted out of my starting quarterback. I don't want to see my starting quarterback after the game that he just lost a heartfelt, emotional game and he's running up smiling and jersey swapping. That's not what that – no, I want to see him with an annoyed look on his face and he's just ready to get to the locker room because he knows that they had it in the palm of their hand. So here's the thing, guys. I know a lot of other people, because of the quarterback deficiencies that we've dealt with, have been so scarred. But Caleb's just fine. Caleb's just fine, okay? He can play the quarterback position. I've seen from preseason to the first 2 games, you see how he processes the field. You see that he goes through his progressions. You see that he's got the arm talent. You saw what happened in that first opening drive against Houston when Houston didn't send the dogs, and he was able to set his feet, read, go through his progressions with line protection. He performed just fine. So, it's a situation where, you have to not get too much up in arms because, like I said, this kid is still young, but I'm not worried about him. My biggest issue comes down to the people protecting for him. And like you said, taking hits is an issue. It goes back to that's exactly why Justin Fields got injured with the thumb injury last year. Got hit running around with the football. But, your thumb gets dislocated. Now you got to miss games. Taking hits from big dudes on the defensive side of the football, never good. The pressure, too. You guys talked about that earlier. Now, that is real. But it's not pressure to be a great quarterback, because I think Caleb truly believes that he is. The pressure is the fact of what you alluded to earlier. You let go of a guy that was a locker room favorite and a fan favorite who was the starting quarterback for a young kid to come in and take the helm. So there is that frustration because there's that pressure that, hey, if you were going to replace him, you need to be just as good, and we want you to be better, but you can't be worse. And so I think that that's where a lot of everybody is, and Taylor's going to be just fine. He's going to be just fine. We do not have to worry about the Justin Fields thing. It was the right call, considering everything. If you add in the contract, having to re-sign him, still needing to coach Justin up more, it was the right call. But we're just going to have to live with these lumps. I asked the Bears fans, and I asked you guys, are we able to live with that during this season?
Yeah, and we prefaced this, we previewed this before the Bears season started, that there's going to be the ups and downs, and this isn't a 17-0 team. You mentioned a very close game. I wanted to run through the score line real quickly here before we touch back upon that offense. The Texans get on the board first with a 56-yard field goal at the 10:20 mark of the first quarter, but the Bears are able to answer back with just 3:51 to go. That's a Cairo Santos 53-yard attempt. That is good. So after the first quarter, it's a 3-3 ball game. In the second quarter, it's a 28-yard pass from C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins to make that 10-3 Houston. And then Houston goes up by 10 with a 47-yard field goal from Kaimi Fairbairn. And then in the second quarter is when the Bears get their first offensive touchdown of the year. It's a Khalil Herbert 2-yard run. The Cairo Santos kick is good, so we're back to just a 3-point game, 13-10 Houston. However, with just a second remaining in the half, a 59-yard field goal attempt is good for this Houston side, and they take a 16-10 lead into the second half. No scoring in the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter, it looked as though all the Bears needed was a touchdown. Like I said, a 6-point game, but the Texans go up by 9 with a 53-yard field goal. The Bears struggled to scramble with that offense in the dying moments of the game. They have to settle for a 54-yard field goal and then hope to get the ball back and have one more drive. That drive did not go the way things planned, and with a 19-13 scoreline, Houston gets the ball back and ends the game with a couple of knees. And it is a win for this Texans side. They are 2-0. That was their home opener, so they are 1-0 at home. Bears are 1-1 and 0-1 on the road as we look into this next week. But before we do that, you talked about that insider information from the offense, or the former Bears coach, about the offense, and I know it was a pretty definitive answer, and you also said that pretty definitively that you don't have confidence in what the Bears have right now. But is there any chance? Of course, like you said, there's nothing in free agency. There's nothing they can go out and get. But can they develop what they have already? Can these offensive linemen, can this offense for the Bears as a whole elevate their play or adapt their play in order to make something happen here? Because I don't think Bears fans can go through a whole entire season of maybe one offensive touchdown per game. There needs to be more scoring. There needs to be more time. There needs to be more plays. You need to put more pressure on these other teams' defenses. Am I wrong?
Yes. No, you're not. And that same coach, by the way, said that if he was still coach of the Bears, Nate Davis would already be cut. So that's a huge statement right there.
Wow.
If you think about it, because Nate Davis was supposed to be an important cog to this offensive line, and the problem is he came into this offseason program out of shape. He did no work when he was away from the facilities. Then when he got to the facilities, he didn't want to work. He sat around on the sidelines. I'm injured. I'm not ready. And now in live action, if you talked about the touchdown with Khalil Herbert, if you remember that play, Nate Davis tripped over his own feet.
Yes.
How you did it? You remember that he tripped over his own feet?
Yeah.
On his face. It was national live TV. It was horrible. It's like, are you kidding me?
They exposed him too. They didn't even overlook that part of the play. Of course, the touchdown was the highlight of the play, but they zoomed in on Nate Davis and
zoomed in on Nate Davis.
Oh my goodness, that and the Caleb Williams jersey getting ripped and still throwing an interception were the unfortunate highlights of that one. But we want to switch it over. We have a caller calling into the show here on WRMN.
Yeah.
What's your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, my name is Francisco Avila, and I'm coming from Chicago.
All right, Francisco.
What's up, Francisco?
What did you want to dive in here on this? We're covering this Bears offense. We haven't really touched upon the defense, but overall, as a team, this Bears team loses to the Texans, which I think was predicted. But did you have anything to add about this unfortunate week 2 for the Chicago team?
Yeah, like going into this, like I was able to be with WRMN before the season started, and we were speaking to how we thought the offense was one that was really strong, as the strongest we've ever seen. And now we're seeing that the defense is better, and the offense is the one that's not as good. So that's something that was surprising to everyone. But I'm in a podcast called The Next Chapter of Sports that you can find on Spotify and Apple. But we were speaking to, if something can change so the offense can click. And Caleb, you guys are saying that he needs time, that he just needs to grow. Like he spoke with CJ Stroud, that he said here, you have all the tools, you just need to improve and keep on going. But something that we spoke of in the podcast was, what if you give Tyler Badgett a try? Give the son of the arm wrestling champion a try. He's done good throughout the preseason. He did good last season. He's tried in the NFL, and he has experience in the NFL. So I think you should give Tyson a try. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Okay, Francisco, thank you for calling. Appreciate it. But we are not going on this Tyler Bagent thing right now.
Yeah.
We're just not. I appreciate the call. Thank you for calling in, but we're not doing this troll job in the second, third week of the season already.
I think it's too early. I think you got to give Caleb more of a chance here, and you can't just switch it up. The only times that the Bears really went to Tyler Bagent in last year was when there were injuries, and there's no injuries yet. Let's knock on wood. So
there's no injuries, and I do, but I think I get where Francisco's coming from. And once again, that's Francisco Avila. He's a local sports reporter, a local sports journalist for Chicago sports area. I think I get what he's throwing out there in terms of should Caleb sit and watch? Because we see what happened with Bryce Young. Bryce Young has been set down. It doesn't mean that Bryce Young is never going to play again. What they're saying is that Bryce Young, you need to sit and you need to watch for a little bit because it's not happening for you. I think that the idea is not.
I mean,
hold on, Derek.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that the idea isn't that Caleb sits and watch because he can't play. I think the idea is for Caleb to sit and watch because the offensive line can't protect him. And I think that that's what he was getting at there. Like, if they can't protect him, why let him get hurt? And I kind of understand that, but like you said, we can't go there yet. We cannot go there yet.
Yeah, but what you're going to do is you're going to bench your number 1 overall pick, who's supposed to be the generational talent. I mean, I just don't see that. Yeah.
And I know you bring up the Bryce Young thing, and I do see that the comparisons are there in a sense when you look at it just on the surface level in layman's terms. But the difference with benching Caleb to okay, if you're benching him to avoid injury, I understand that. If you're saying your offensive line is incompetent in a sense that they can't get the job done to keep your quarterback safe, I understand not risking him, but at the same time, you're not getting your number 1 pick out there in order to develop. And if you're going to sit on the sidelines and have him watch, then you need to have an already generational talent in there. Of course, the other comparison in there has been the Green Bay Packers, and Jordan Love got to watch Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers got to watch Brett Favre. You have to have somebody watchable in there for Caleb to learn from. I don't think Caleb learns much from Tyson Bagent. Nothing against Tyson Bagent. I think he did an okay job stepping in last year, and obviously he's made this roster again this year, but he plays that number 2 role for a reason. And it's when the Bears need him due to an injury. And I said it, I'll say it again. Let's hope that doesn't become the case, because I think with what we were talking about with this offensive line, we're heading towards that direction. We did with Justin Fields, and it just scares me to know that Caleb Williams is out there with Swiss cheese in front of him, and he's a young, smaller guy. He's not the biggest out there.
But he still gives us the best chance to win. And that's what, and remember, this season we won 7 games last year. See, that's where the things get confused, because most of the time a number 1 overall pick does not come to the teams that have a record of, this team could actually be moving to the playoff number next year. Most teams with number 1 pick is coming to, they're just looking to try to win 4 games, maybe tops. The expectations for Bears wins this season gives that added pressure and forces that learning curve to be accelerated, because everybody feels like this team with the current talent and with that defense can be a playoff team. And so when you see the frustrations happening on that offensive line and not being able to block, do you want your generational quarterback to get hurt while trying to make this playoff push? And I think that's where a lot of angst is from fans, but I think that all 3 of us are in agreement that you got to let him play. He's the number 1 overall pick. He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason, and I feel like he gives the Bears the best chance to win.
Okay. And before the beginning of the season, the Bears, everyone is saying how great the Bears offensive line was. Oh, we've got this guy. It's solidified. We're bringing in the new wide receiver, Dunze. But now, and in the preseason, they looked okay. But that's the preseason. You're playing against a bunch of scrubs. So Caleb Williams looks good. Now, he made a couple of phenomenal passes in the preseason. He's made a few decent plays during the regular season. But if he's going to learn, and this, unfortunately, he's going to learn how to play in the NFL with a Swiss cheese offensive line right now. Now, next season, great. You spend all the money and all the free agency and all the draft picks on solidifying the offensive line and solidifying the front 4 for the defense. Get a little bit more depth, get a little bit more help. But right now, he's got to learn. This is a trial by fire. And you're not going to bench your number 1 overall, quote-unquote, generational talent. Generational quarterback.
He's got to play through it. He's got to learn just like the offensive line has got to learn, and that's unfortunate. And our fingers are crossed. Our fingers are crossed that he can get out of it unscathed and not have to take any injury. Because I truly do feel that the line will start to gel by week 4. I think this week is the game against the Colts, which we've been talking about last week, and we're going to segue into the Colts preview for the second half of the show after the hour.
But let me make a quick point, Marcus. Something that I wanted to say last segment. Now, you have Shane Waldron as the new OC, right? Coming over from Seattle. What is he doing to help Caleb? What is he putting together with this offensive line, because make no mistake about it, it is his play calls that are going to get Caleb killed.
There's right now, I don't like the personnel groupings. I don't, and I know it's 2 games in, you know, right? So we can't jump over the coordinator yet. But I don't like his personnel groupings. It's too many times where our tight end is not right, where he's got Gerald Everett in there over Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet needs to be in that lineup way more with DJ Moore along with DeAndre Swift. So the groupings have got to be better. And then the play calling has been a little suspect with the short screen tosses, the tosses on the running back plays that are going nowhere. You can't push the edge on the running game until you have gone and solidified up the middle first. So
run a slant route, you know? I mean, everything has been, like you said, it's either been a screen pass that barely gets you back to the line, or you're bombing one because it's 3rd and 22 and you need to get all the way down the field.
Yeah, and if the pressure continually comes up the middle, that's the perfect way to defend on offense for it. Slants going across the middle.
Hot routes.
Everyone does it against the Bears. You see the slants. Packers do it against the Bears. Lions do it against the Bears. The Vikings do it against the Bears. And it works every single time. Yes, hot routes. I'm sorry, Marcus.
And I'll tell you what, too. How about we pick up the blitz? Because here's the funny part about it. If the offensive line actually picked it up, if the offensive line would have actually picked up the blitz, we could have hit them with some over-the-top plays. You could have got some big plays down the field to DJ Moore. Because, that secondary was big-time exposed when you're sending 5 and 6 guys every pass play. And maybe a little max protection, Shane. How about that? How about your running back and your tight end stay in the block for the blitz? So that's why I say, yes, there is other culprits in this struggle for the offense. And I think that they can get back on the good foot with the Colts this week. The Indianapolis Colts are a very beatable team. They have struggled mightily against the run in their first 2 games. So I think that this is the game where the Bears' offensive line needs to get their technique back together, get their identity down, and then be ready to go and be solidified for that Week 4 game. But I'm really hoping that this game right here against the Colts can be that get-back game for the offense as a whole.
Well, I hope so, considering the fact that the Indianapolis Colts have given up over 470 yards of rushing in the past 2 games. So this should be a get-right game for the Bears' O-line, hopefully, and the Bears' offense.
So we are unanimously selecting Caleb Williams as our quarterback this week. I don't think there's any other crazy talk going into here.
Maybe Francisco.
We talked about how Derek said this is going to be a trial by fire, but we also talked about how, Marcus, you said that these next 2 weeks are going to be definitive for this offensive line and really a test. So as we look towards this Colts matchup with the Bears, and we're going to get into it a little bit in this next segment, we're going to have to talk about, what are the big things that we're looking for in this Bears team against an 0-2 Colts team that is 0-1 at home, as this Bears team is 1-1 and 0-1 on the road. They need to get a road win here this week.
Yes, indeed. And, guys, I'm telling you right now, it has been awesome. I thank you so much for coming on in and driving the show, helping to take the reins. You guys are going to continue the rest of the way. 1410 WRMN. And I am going to go head out and enjoy a little bit of Greenville, Mississippi. Have a good one, guys, and continue to kick butt on the show. Go Bears, go Bears, go Bears.
Thanks, Marcus. And coming up from 12 to 1 is the Chief Guard of the Republic, here on AM 1410 WRMN in Elgin.
In the mood for some great barbecue but just don't have time to make it yourself? Carry out Coleman's Barbecue on Elgin's East Side at 79 Clock Tower. Coleman specializes in ribs, tips, chicken wings, seafood, and sandwiches, with sides like coleslaw, potato salad, and dessert. Try Coleman's Exotic Mild Sauce. It's the bomb. You can also buy sauce in gallon or pint sizes. It's prepared just right, the Coleman's way. Call 224-535-8153.
In the middle of the night, everything will be all right if you listen to Coast right here on WRMN 7 days a week from midnight to 5 a.m. Each night on Coast to Coast, listeners are captivated by George Noory with discussions on news and current events, conspiracy theories, UFOs, life after death, and all things curious and unexplained. Coast to Coast, every night, midnight to 5 a.m. right here on WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM.
Your hometown radio station since 1949. We are WRMN AM 1410. Elgin time, 11 o'clock.
I think the message sent really is that, look, there's a big gap. I mean, they're ahead of us by a lot. And it's a talented team on and off the field. It's a talented team. But there's a big gap, and we got room to make up. There's no question about it. And so that makes it, frankly, that makes it daunting. They've been good, man. I mean, for the division, I mean, I would say that about the other teams too, right? They've created a gap the last 2 years in the division. So, yeah, we got room to go, man. Like we got work to do for sure.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us too in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives. For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us too in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Right back in here on AM 1410 WRMN with the truth about Chicago sports. Thank you, Marcus Mack, for letting us kind of hijack your show here, but also for coming on and phoning in for that first hour of the show. We're going to get into a little bit more Bears talk here. We have to preview the upcoming Bears game for this weekend. That is a noon start on a CBS tomorrow, 9/22, against the Colts, who are 0-2. 0-1 at home. The Bears, of course, 1-1, 0-1 on the road. And this should be a win, Derek, against this Colts team.
Should be.
So we will have to see. They're currently sitting in second place in the 2024 AFC South standings. That just goes to show you how bad the AFC South is right now to start the year. But
sure.
37 points for, 45 given up for that Indianapolis side of things. Chicago has the same number of points for, 37. They've only given up 36 points, and of course they have a win to their name. They're sitting in third. Everybody is 1-1 in the division except for the Minnesota Vikings, who are 2-0 to start the season.
And that was a shock.
And then, of course, in this AFC South, it's Houston, who the Bears just saw, holding that undefeated record on top. Everybody else, as I mentioned, 0-2. That's Indianapolis, Tennessee, and Jacksonville in the AFC South. So it should be a win, as we mentioned, for this Bears team.
Would be, could be. It's just a matter of if the Bears offense in general could get on track, in line, all the sails going in the same direction, everyone pulling on the rope, as they say. But I mean, if they can't capitalize, because you know that the Indianapolis Colts defense is going to be prepping for the Bears.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that they've given up 474 yards of rushing the past 2 weeks to begin the season, and the Bears O-line is, like we've said throughout this show, Swiss cheese, to me, this is a very daunting task for the Bears O-line. And if they can't right the ship, as it were, I don't know what the hell is going to happen.
You guys use the term make or break week for a lot of teams that went 0-2. I think the Indianapolis Colts are one of those teams.
Yes.
But I think this is a make or break week for the Bears as well. As Bears fans, I think we can all see why, because of the fact that this is a prove it week. We saw them rely on the defense in week 1 to come back from a 17-0 deficit and somehow miraculously get the win.
Yeah,
and then last
defense and
week,
special teams.
Yeah, and then this past week, you still saw nothing from the offense. So, in the first week, the blow is kind of softened by the fact that you get the win, but the offense still doesn't show up in week 2 for this Bears team, and you don't get the win, and you play a real team this time. Not to discredit Tennessee at all, but they had some things go wrong for them in that second half, some possible injuries to Will Levis that really exposed them quickly, and they weren't able to scramble and recover. And when they did, they're falling down and throwing the ball as an interception to this Bears side of things, and the Bears take the advantage and the win. But you're not going to get those kind of mistakes with a tough team. And I'm not saying going into this week with the Colts that this is a tough team. Obviously, they're 0-2, but like we said, it's a make or break week, and I think both teams are going to step out there and have something to prove. Especially the Colts are going to want to defend home field. They're 0-1 at home. They need to get that first win at home, and they see this Bears team coming in with all the struggles they've had throughout these first 2 weeks, and I think they salivate a little bit, I think they're a little hungry to get a win, and don't underestimate that if you're a Bears fan looking at this Colts team and saying, we've got to win out of Indianapolis.
You hear about get-right games. Now, this is definitely a get-right game for Chicago and the Bears. I also think that this is a get-right game for the Indianapolis Colts because I think the defense is... Granted, one of their top players is out for this game, but at the same time, when it's a turnstile or Swiss cheese, as we'll just keep on going with that, they want to prove that they are not as bad as they are.
Yeah.
So it would be very easy for the Bears to overlook this particular game. I think the defense will show up no matter what, so it's going to be a close game. The Bears should be favored in this game, despite being like a 1.5 point underdog. But that's only because you got the 3-point advantage, of the home team for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and I don't want to necessarily talk this to death, so what I'm going to do for Marcus is give him a segment that I usually have in my Tuesday Mike on the Mic show. It's called Football y Football, and what I do is I cover both football, American football, and football as in soccer. We have some professional teams here in Chicago that had the pitch this past week, especially one of them shares the pitch with the Chicago Bears over at Soldier Field. That's the Chicago Fire. Saturday, September 14th, they were at home against the New York Red Bulls in Soldier Field. Chicago was 6-8-14 with 26 points and still 14th in that Eastern Conference out of 15 teams. The New York Red Bulls were 10-13-5, 43 points. They are 4th in that same Eastern Conference of the table. That was a 2-1 win, though, for the Fire as they get back on track after losing their previous 2 games. There was a goal from Tom Barlow in the 31st minute, but then New York answered back in the 47th with a Dennis Jengar strike. And then it was Chicago's Georgios Koutsias bringing the Fire back on top with the eventual game-winning goal in the 75th minute. Unfortunately, though, the Fire went right back to their losing ways this past Wednesday in Geodis Park in Nashville, Tennessee, where they faced the Nashville SC team. Nashville was 7-8-13 with 29 points going into this one. That was a 1-0 loss to Nashville, 1-0. Sam Surridge had the lone goal for Nashville in this one at the 19th minute mark. And as it sits now, the Fire still 14th in that table, 7-8-15, and they only have those 29 points. Now on the ladies, well, actually before we jump to the ladies' side of things, we should let you know that tonight at 6:30 p.m. in Stade Saputo in Montreal, Canada, to face the CF Montreal, the Fire will be back in action. That's a team that is 7-10-2. They have 30 points on the season, and you can watch this all on MLS Season Pass, which is through Apple TV. Now for the ladies' side of things. Friday, September 13th, ooh, spooky, the Red Stars were at Providence Park in Portland, Oregon to face the Portland Thorns, who were 8-3-8 with 27 points and just above Chicago in the table in 6th. The top 8 teams in the NWSL make the playoffs, just to give you a frame of reference. That was a 1-0 win for Chicago. Ali Schlegel with the lone goal of the match early on the 16-minute mark. And the Red Stars improved to 8-2-10 with 26 points. They are still 7th in the table behind Portland, though. Their next match, we had Chicago playing on Friday the 13th last week. This week we have them playing on the 21st night of September. Do you remember, Derek? Do you remember? So tonight they have a match at 8:30 p.m. against the Alex Morgan-less San Diego Wave. Last week I had covered on my show that Alex Morgan was retiring from the professional game of soccer, and she had an emotional final game. It was actually 2 weeks ago that she actually retired. The Wave are now 4-7-9 with 19 points, and they actually won in their last match against the Utah Royals without their captain and without missing a beat. In fact, they actually lost that game that Alex Morgan subbed out for the final time against the North Carolina Courage. That was a 4-1 scoreline. But the Red Stars won 3-0 the last time these two teams met back on June 28th. This game will be at SeatGeek Stadium tonight, Saturday at 8:30 p.m., which is partly why Riot Fest got moved back to Douglas Park this weekend. But you can watch all the action on Ion TV.
And we will be going to the phone lines for a caller.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Fred Colantonio of the Chicago Sports Journal. Good morning.
Hello, Fred. How you doing?
Good morning.
I'm doing good. I'm doing fine. Nice and warm out today, and enjoying the weather while we can. And hopefully for tomorrow, our Chicago Bears can do much better than they did last week. It was a tough one by about a few points, 1 touchdown, but keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. How about you? What do you guys think about the Bears this year compared to last year?
Well, you mentioned the weather there, and I know Lucas Oil Stadium has a dome, so hopefully it doesn't matter what Indianapolis weather they have, and they can get a win, because last year, as you mentioned, they started out a lot rockier than it has this year. I believe it was 0-4 to start the season last year. So, already 1-1 is not bad. It's not terrible, but there are some glaring issues with this team that I don't even think we saw last year. I don't think the offensive line was this terrible last year. So as we were mentioning in those first two segments, I'm worried, and this is a definite prove-it week for the Bears.
Yeah, I think Williams is a nice quarterback, very popular person, and I think he fits in like a regular baseball glove with the team, real good team, and everybody likes him. And no one's talked bad about him, none of the news media people or sports writers, so everybody seems to like him very much, including myself. So they made a good round pick there with him as their quarterback for the Chicago Bears.
You mentioned him being that glove that fits well for this team. Yeah. The only problem is that offensive line, you can compare it to a really bad uniform. If you're talking baseball terms, the glove is nice. Yeah. It's maybe a $400 fancy glove that you worked in. You pounded the mitten and you got the oil to loosen up the leather a little bit. However, that uniform is just, it doesn't look good out there on the field. I don't mean the Bears' actual uniforms. As speaking metaphorically, that offensive line, it's just, for lack of a better word, it's trash right now. It is. It really is.
I think they got a 75% chance of making the playoffs, but I don't know who's going to take the division title this year in their division. So we'll soon see.
I'm with you. Up until this point, I had the Bears still making the playoffs in a wild card spot. Of course, it seems like it's the Lions' division to win, and the tables are a little bit turned right now because the Vikings started out 2-0, unlike the rest of the division. And I don't think anybody was expecting that with their plethora of injuries, including now Justin Jefferson. But you talk about the Bears making the playoffs. I was right there with you, and I still am. But up until today, when I heard some of that insider information from Marcus Mack, the typical host of this show, and now it worries me that this offensive line is not going to get the job done to really bring out the talent that the rest of this offense might have in order to get this Bears team to the playoffs.
What do you think they might need? In your opinion? Do you think they need a good defense or more of an offense coordinator?
The Bears have always had a very good defense. There's a couple of years in there, but they've prided themselves on their defense. It's still just this offense, and I don't know. Personally, I'm not in the locker room. From an evaluator standpoint, from a couch quarterback standpoint, it seems to me like the playbook for this offense needs to either adapt or they just need to get a lot stronger on that offensive line. So,
definitely.
I'm really hoping,
And right now,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, on Pro Football Prospective, the Bears are actually ranked number 9 for their defense. So it would definitely behoove them to bolster their offensive line and maybe they're differ on the play calling. Because right now, they've got a playoff caliber defense. There's no ifs, ands, or buts in my mind about it. It's the big question mark is the Bears' offense. And right now, the offensive line.
Yeah.
Couple that with the play calling. So, couple big question marks.
Well, we want to thank you for calling in and giving your thoughts. And, I'll say go Bears, and let's hope we get a win tomorrow against the Colts as Bears fans.
Well, I'll get in touch with Marcus. I want to do a feature story on him in the fall edition of the Chicago Sports Journal. So I'll get in touch with him. I'll leave him a message, and we can get together.
Awesome.
I've been doing, I figure we need some more local TV shows and radio shows. So hopefully I'll get in touch. I'll leave him a little message, and thank you for having me on the show, too.
Thanks for calling in, Fred.
Thank you for calling in, man.
All right.
Go Bears. And as we recap that, of course, as I mentioned, a noon start. Again, one more reminder for you against the Colts tomorrow on CBS. That is tomorrow, 9/22, September 22nd. We went through our football stuff, and Derek, I'm going to pull a little audible on you. We're gonna start off with our baseball stuff, which will take us into the break, and we'll have more after the break too. But you being the Cub fan here, we just this past week the Milwaukee Brewers clinched the NL Central Division. Yeah. I don't think there was any question. I don't think the Cubs were going to be catching them. However, there's still a slim chance, at the Cubs taking a final wild card seat. As it sits right now, the Cubs are 79-75. That's 513 baseball. They are 6 games back from that final wild card spot held by the New York Mets. But it's not just Cubs and then Mets. The Atlanta Braves have snuck in there. They're only 2 games back of that final spot. So there's going to have to be a lot of leapfrogging for the Cubs in these final 9 games. I repeat, 9 games, and there's a 6-game discrepancy between the Cubs and the Mets. So that magic number is closing in on this Chicago team.
Yeah, and why don't we listen to a clip from Craig Counsell off the Marquee Network, and we'll get his takes on things.
I think the message sent really is that, look, there's a big gap. I mean, they're ahead of us by a lot, and it's a talented team on and off the field. It's a talented team, but there's a big gap, and we got room to make up. There's no question about it. And so that makes it, frankly, that makes it daunting. They've been good, man. I mean, for the division. I mean, I'd say that about the other teams too, right? They've created a gap the last 2 years in the division. So, yeah, we got room to go, man. Like we got work to do for sure.
And they definitely have a lot of work to do in this offseason, whether it be spending money on starting pitching, trying to figure out their corner outfielders or not. It's going to be brutal, but I mean, at least it's a little bit better than what it is on the south side.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we're going to get into the Sox probably more so after the break. But I think some of the irony in that statement from Craig Counsell, he's giving props to the Brewers for having that great caliber team for the last couple years, and he was the manager of that team that last couple years. So kind of a pat on his own back there in that quote.
Little bit.
As he tries to probably deflect some of the focus off of the underperforming from this north side of Chicago team this year. As we recap, I'm not sure if Marcus covered this within the last week, but the Cubs had a 3-game series with the Colorado Rockies. That was dating back to last Friday. A 9-5 win for the Rockies, a 6-5 win in 10 innings, a walk-off win for the Rockies. The Cubs do get the final game that's Kyle Hendricks getting the win. He is now 4-11. That's a 6-2 win for the Cubs team. And then the Cubs come home on Monday and face the Oakland A's, who stayed in town after playing the White Sox. The Cubs get the early win in this series, a 9-2 victory to bring them to 77-73. It's Shota Imanaga on the mound, of course, getting the win. 14-3 on the season. He has been lights out. Not to also mention that combined no-hitter that he pitched just a week ago. Then you have a Cubs loss to Oakland, 4-3. And then another loss as they drop the rubber match in this Oakland series. So 2 losses to a struggling Oakland team. It's not what you want to see when you're in a wild card race. A 5-3 win for the Athletics. And then Thursday, the Cubs opened up a series at home, still at home, against the Washington Nationals. That was a 7-6 win, followed by last night's 3-1 victory as Jameson Taillon improves to 11-8. So 2 crucial wins against this Washington team for the Cubs. I'm going to get your thoughts in just a second, but as we look forward into the future, this is a 4-game series with Washington. Tonight, well, I shouldn't say tonight, it's a 1:20 start, and then followed by another Cubs patented 1:20 start tomorrow. That's Sunday. And then the Cubs go on the road for 3 games, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The first 2 games, 5:40 starts against the Philadelphia Phillies, who just punched their ticket to the postseason. And then that final game is a 5:05 start. Friday through Saturday will be the final 3 games of the season for the Cubs, all against Cincinnati at home. The first 2 are 1:20 starts, and the final game is a Sunday 2:20 start. That middle game against Cincinnati will be nationally broadcast on ESPN+, but all these other games you can find on Marquee Sports. But Derek, dropping 2 games to Oakland, you make up for it with 2 games against Washington. What are your thoughts going into this final stretch for your Chicago Cubs?
Oh, they're done. They've been done. I think that they've been done for the last 2 months, because you get these stretches where you go 7 games in a row, you win 7 games in a row, then you drop 3. Then you win 3 games, you drop 2. Or, it's just the way that it is. But I want to kind of, I'll do a pitch out on your Audible. I'm gonna talk about Shohei Ohtani and the wondrous wonder that he is, because I don't know if you heard about it, Mike, but this guy out in LA, probably one of the top 2 players in the game today, went 6 for 6.
Yeah.
That's 6 ABs, 6 hits with 3 homers.
Yeah.
10 RBIs.
Yep.
2 steals. And 17 total bases. Not only that, he is the first MLB player ever in the history of Major League Baseball to create the 50-50 club. That's 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases in a season.
Impressive. And you say top 2 players in the game, maybe. I say top 1. I mean, when he's getting, of course, everybody looked at that contract at the start of the season. And then, of course, there was that whole turmoil with the translator and sports betting and stuff. This has shadowed all of that. I mean, of course, the numbers are still out there. You're looking at the contract. But, I mean, for him to do something like this, and let's not forget, he typically, when he isn't recovering from Tommy John surgery, he typically is on the defensive side of the game too, pitching. This year, he is just a DH. We are watching
Never seen this
history.
before.
And not only did he join the 50-50 club, because he got that stolen base, I believe, in the first inning, and then hit one of those 3 home runs to get him to 49. The second one got him to 50, so he joined the 50-50 club, 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases. He surpassed it. He got another home run in that same game. As you said, 6 for 6, 10 RBIs in a game as they beat the Marlins 20-4. I mean, this is just incredible. And, before we go to break, I just want to make one more note that Shohei Ohtani is the man. I mean, a 51-51 club, and it's all him. Just unbelievable. There was one other point I wanted to make, but I'll probably remember it after the break.
You mean the fact that he had the game of the week for like any of the Chicago teams in town.
Yeah.
You know, where he actually hits 3 home runs, gets 10 RBIs, does all that fun stuff.
I know the point I wanted to make. If you think about it, you have to get on base another 50 times plus those home runs because you can't steal when you hit a home run. You've hit a home run, you're done.
And the valuable point that Mr. Nick Johnson just pointed out, he had a .7 WAR in one game. That's insane.
That's crazy.
You are listening to The Truth About Chicago Sports on AM 1410 WRMN, Chicago. I'm sorry, Elgin, and we will be right back.
Discover the authentic taste of Italy at Mazziano's Pizza and Pastaria at Route 20 and Nestler in Elgin. There is one true fact of everyday life that never dulls: the simple pleasure of eating great Italian food. At Mazziano's, they'll make sure your dinner or lunch will be the best part of your day. Whether you have a taste for pizza or any of Mazziano's homemade Italian recipes, like ravioli or lasagna, they can also cater your party. Enjoy it any way you like: delivery, carry-out, or dine-in. Visit Mazzianos.com.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free, for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. 800-760-1845. That's 800-760-1845.
Keeping your car's coolant system in good shape with a regular flush is really important. Let the experts at Meineke Car Care Center at 376 Sundown Road in South Elgin remove your old coolant, preventing chemical buildups in your engine. Then they'll fill your entire system with new coolant to help your engine run smoothly and prevent rust and corrosion, increasing your engine's lifespan. To schedule your appointment, call 847-888-9644.
The lightest, fluffiest pancakes are calling your name at JoJo's Diner, 1935 West Gulf Road in Schaumburg. JoJo's has a huge breakfast menu featuring skillets, eggs Benedict, and so much more. Don't stop at breakfast. JoJo's also offers great burgers, sandwiches, and shakes. And for mouth-watering prime rib, try JoJo's for dinner. They have such a versatile menu. JoJo's Diner is family-owned and operated, and it's one of Schaumburg's best-kept secrets. Visit jojosdiner.com today.
This summer, get outside and enjoy a quick round of golf at the Twin Lakes Golf Course in Palatine. Twin Lakes features an executive 9-hole golf course with a driving range, cafe, and pro shop. Just starting the game, lessons are available. Take a couple of hours for yourself and stop at the Twin Lakes Rec Area off Northwest Highway and hit the links. For a tee time, call 847-934-6050.
Chicago defense attorney Mark Schieblo has co-authored the book titled DUI Jury Trial, which is a true story of a DUI case that he defended. The accused was an Illinois truck driver arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. This book contains facts about the case from the date of the arrest up to the jury's verdict, and this nonfiction novel also includes the transcripts from the jury trial itself. The book DUI Jury Trial is now available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com.
Visit the Milwaukee County Zoo this summer to enjoy so many species of fun. Home to more than 2,200 animals, representing over 340 different species. The zoo educates, entertains, and inspires. Stomp back in time with the zoo's summer exhibit, Dinosaur Discovery, sponsored by Sendik's Food Market. You'll be astounded by the gigantic and scientifically accurate animatronic displays. Touch, feel, and learn about the role of predators in the ecosystem. Running through October 5th. Visit MilwaukeeZoo.org.
And welcome back into the Truth About Chicago Sports on AM 1410 WRMN. I'm your host, or filling in for our host, Marcus Mack. I'm Derek Geyer, alongside Mike Napolitano.
Yeah, and we are going to get more into our baseball segment here. We mentioned the Cubs. We mentioned Shohei Ohtani. That was the top news of the week. Let's look at the bottom news of the week, and it's the White Sox, as always. I think that was not as of a surprise for most.
And why don't you go ahead and run that clip, Matt?
We're not going to be working heavy in free agency. We've got guys out on the field right now that need to improve their game. A lot of these guys are young players and need to make the adjustments to be more productive.
Not going to be working heavy in free agency, Chris Getz said on the broadcast last Friday night. What? Excuse me?
Well, okay, hold on, Mike. In the last segment, we talked about Shohei, right?
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, in the previous offseason, we had Jerry Reinsdorf saying that they weren't going to be in on the sweepstakes that was Ohtani.
Oh, yeah, and I lost zero sleep over that because I didn't figure that was going to happen in the first place. That would involve, look at the contract Shohei Ohtani got, and look at the statements Jerry Reinsdorf made after that contract. He said, something along the lines of, you should never be able to, you never have to give a player that much money. Sure, even to the normal fan, that is a lot of money, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree that, maybe players aren't worth that much. I mean, they do put in the work. I see that argument too, but those astronomical of numbers is a little bit. That's a little crazy. Not gonna lie, but
hey, what about
Chris Getz to say that they're not going to be working heavily in free agency, not bringing anything into this team, this 118 loss team?
Well, just out of curiosity, what would be the opposite of astronomical? Putrid? Pathetic? As far as the numbers goes?
I think in the dictionary it says Chicago White Sox as synonym now.
That's a good one.
In fact, there might even be a picture of the 2024 Chicago White Sox when you look up the word putrid.
Which is kind of funny because right now the White Sox are sitting at 36 wins for this season, which isn't even as many as the Chicago Bulls had last year of 39.
Yeah, I was telling you guys during the break, and I talked about this on my Tuesday radio show, Mike on the Mic. The NBA and NHL playoffs this past year, the lowest win total for both sports to get into the playoffs was 39 wins. The White Sox played twice as many games practically, 162 compared to the 82 game schedule in both the NBA and the NHL. And the White Sox can't even get to that 39 win mark. They're sitting at 36. And this is unbelievable. Another stat I wanted to bring up was that the entire American League Central Division is above 500 except for the White Sox. In fact, that AL Central, with all four of those teams above 500, are still 33 games as a total. If you were to combine all of their wins subtracted by all their losses, they are 33 games below 500. That is how much the Chicago White Sox in 2024 weigh down the rest of this division. Just as a stat, of course, it doesn't matter. The Cleveland Guardians have clinched their playoff spot, and they're going, so it's not going to hold them back at all. But if you were to look at this division as one team, one grouping, that is how bad the White Sox are. Playing .234 baseball, 36 and 118. I mean, is there really much more to talk about with this team? I mean,
the Shakes.
Pretty much.
Maybe?
I guess so. So the loss total in the MLB, in the modern MLB era, is 120, set by the New York Mets. The White Sox, if they lose 4 more games this season, they will surpass that number, and 4 more is definitely doable. You have 2 more games against San Diego. You have 3 against the Los Angeles Angels, who are also up to break a record, and I'm going to get into that in just a second, and then 3 more games against the Detroit Tigers. So 8 games remaining, and all they need to do are lose half of those in order to set a new record, one that you don't want to set.
Yeah, and did you even think that the AL Central was going to be as strong as it is this year?
No, I did not see 4 out of the 5 teams being over 500, but I mean, even then, some of them are barely over 500. It's not going to matter. They're not, some of these teams aren't in a playoff race. However, for a while, 3 teams from the AL Central were set to be in the playoffs. And as we look at the American League wildcard race too, that is actually still the case. So you have the Cleveland Guardians that clinched, and then you have in the 2 wildcard spots, the Kansas City Royals. They're 1 game up of that final wildcard spot, so they're in the 2nd wildcard spot. And then the Minnesota Twins, who hold that 3rd and final spot, who is right on their tails, only 1 game back, the Detroit Tigers. So it looks as though we are going to have 3 American League Central teams in the postseason, which that is crazy to me, too. I mean, Kansas City, 82-72, playing 532 baseball. Minnesota, 81-73, 526 baseball. And the Tigers, 1 game back, as I mentioned, 80-74, 519 baseball.
Yeah, and considering that the AL Central was kind of the laughingstock last year, now all of a sudden it's the powerhouse of the American League? Holy hell.
I don't understand it. I haven't looked deep enough into it, but what I did look deep enough into are some other embarrassing White Sox stats. And of course,
I'm here for that.
This is not updated as of last night's game. The White Sox went into extra innings and lost, so I actually don't even think that game applies. But this season, when the White Sox have been trailing after 6 innings, they are 0-70. When the White Sox are trailing after 7 innings, they are 0-86. And when the White Sox are trailing after 8 innings, going into the 9th, your last ditch effort, the White Sox are 0-93. They have lost more 9th inning games than there even are in those NBA or NHL schedules. I mean, you can't make this up. It can't get any worse, right?
I don't know. Quite honestly, I think you're pulling it out of your bum. But, I mean, at the same time, this is so White Sox right now. I feel for you. And I'm a Cubs fan, but I'm not like one of these Cubs fans where it's like, oh, screw the White Sox. No, I want the White Sox to do good. But, I mean, Jesus.
Before the start of this last week, the White Sox and Angels were set to play each other 6 times in the remainder of the season, which is quite a lot for a Western team and a Central team. You typically see some divisional play towards the end of the season, but of course now everybody plays everybody. It's an expanded schedule.
Kind of stinks.
And yeah, in some ways, but I'm trying to find the stat here. The White Sox and the Angels are both on the verge of setting loss records. As I mentioned, the White Sox would need to get to 121, so they only need 4 more losses. The Angels are in that same boat. They are the only team in the MLB to never hit or eclipse 100 losses in a season. Their loss record on a season, this is just franchise record, is 95. They are currently sitting at 91 losses. So
92.
But the magic number for both of these teams is 92?
92.
Are they officially? Oh, yeah.
92
I might be a day
and 62.
Off. I might be a day off.
62 and 92.
Okay, but that still puts their magic number at 4 to surpass that 95 mark.
Yeah.
3 to tie for both teams, 4 losses to surpass these unprecedented marks. And these 2 teams play each other 3 more times this season. Now, the Angels, I believe, I don't know if you have those pulled up. I mentioned the White Sox have 8 games remaining on the season. I can't really do quick math here for the Angels. Oh, they have 8 games remaining as well, because it's a 162 season. They got 92 losses, 62 wins. So 8 games for both teams. All they need to do are lose half to surpass these records. That's embarrassing on both fronts. And the White Sox final homestand of the season will be between the Los Angeles Angels. So I will be at the 3rd and final game. That's a 1:10 start on Thursday to see quite possibly history for one or the other team.
Yeah, good luck with that.
They can't both lose in that game, but they can both still hit this mark.
You know who loses that game?
The fans.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, of course. We've been losing as fans since the start of the season, and I won't even go into the front office and why. I think we've done a lot of that, and you'll hear me throughout this next whole maybe off season and next White Sox season where they don't work heavy in free agency and come back to the table with the same players. Oh yes, all your favorites, White Sox fans. You know, that lineup that hit 120 losses. I'm counting the chickens before they hatch, but let's be honest.
But Machado's finally back.
Yeah, he's finally not injured for the 150 games that he is every year, so he'll come back for the last couple when it means absolutely nothing. Maybe he'll hit a couple home runs when it still absolutely means nothing. I went through.
Eloy's doing good.
Yeah, with the Baltimore Orioles. I went through the Cubs previous week. I don't even really want to go through the White Sox previous week. However, they did something the Cubs didn't do. They took 2 of 3 from Oakland at home, surprisingly.
Ouch.
That was Saturday and Sunday. The White Sox got those 2 wins. They continued and had a 3-game winning streak. That's their second of the year. The only other time they did that was when they swept Tampa Bay early on in the year. That third game, this one, of course, not a sweep. That third game was the first game of the series with the Angels. They won 8-4. Jonathan Cannon gets the win. And then they proceeded with their regularly scheduled programming. The White Sox dropped the final 2 to the Los Angeles Angels. As I said, those 2 teams battling it out these days. The final game between these 2 teams to get to that 117 loss mark was a 4-3 loss in 13 innings for this White Sox team. And then last night, they got back into action out west in San Diego this time, a 3-2 loss in the 10th inning. So the White Sox, I will say, they are fighting into extra innings to not get to this record, but everything they try is null and void. None of this works. They're at 118 losses, and it's going to keep up. I think the best case scenario is that they just don't go to the bottom of the 9th in these away games. Don't go into extra innings. Just throw in the towel in the top of the 9th, please, White Sox. Nobody can stand it.
Would this be good, bad baseball?
I guess so.
I mean, this, I don't even, whatever.
Well, you only have 8 more games of good, bad baseball.
Yes.
That is tonight at 7:40 in San Diego. Tomorrow to finish out the series with the Padres at 3:10 p.m. Then the White Sox come home for 3 games. Those are 6:40 starts with the Angels on both Tuesday and Wednesday. And as I mentioned, that 1:10 start as the home closer. Then the White Sox go on the road for the final 3 games of the year. That's a 5:40 start with Detroit, a 12:10 start on Saturday, next Saturday with Detroit, and then to round out the season, a 2:10 start. And as I mentioned, Detroit's still very much in that wild card race, so it's not like they're going to be sitting guys and the White Sox have a chance to get wins. They can try to play spoilers. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Detroit is going to be hungry for that final wildcard spot and playing to the very last out.
We could only assume that that's what's going to happen, considering that they are quote unquote professional athletes that do get a paycheck.
Yeah, I will say this team, I don't fault the players. They were set up to fail. This wasn't a team that was built to have any kind of success. And I'm not saying they're bad players either. I think those players, they all know where they stand, and they all know that they are not a face of a franchise here. I mean, what face of the franchise does this White Sox team have? I mean, Moncada's injured, and Garrett Crochet has not looked like himself since the trade deadline. I can't mention any one of those players being the face of a even 500 franchise. So I think these players have done a great professional job of still going out there and taking the licks on the chin and still trying to make something of this year, I guess.
Did I maybe miss it, but isn't Lou Bob still patrolling center field?
You know what? I totally forgot Luis Robert Jr. is on this team, and that is my bad. He is my favorite player for this White Sox team, even before all the trades. I mean, Tim Anderson was up there.
He's your favorite player after going? I really don't know who the face of the franchise is.
I don't mean favorite player right now in all of Major League Baseball. But if I had to pick somebody from this White Sox
I just
team,
meant the Sox, really.
Yeah, he has had a really bad season, and I think he would agree with that statement. But with what we have seen from him as a player as a whole, still my favorite player, I guess. Current player.
Okay.
Current player.
There, Mr. Napolitano.
You heard me.
It is all right.
You heard me.
Things will only get better.
You heard me in that Cougars segment. I have to go back to 2005 to have some favorite players. And one other thing I wanted to mention. Again, thank you to Connor Klingen for coming on. We'll get a chance to talk to him again. But another thing that popped into my brain here, in my baseball brain, was that a memory takes me only back 11 years. 2013, a team just up the road and a team that we cover on our show, the Schaumburg Boomers. They made the playoffs in just their second year of existence. They missed it by a game in 2012.
That much.
Just like this season. And they went 6-0 in that 2013 run to win the best of 5 and the Frontier League. The following year, they only lost a game in each series and won back-to-back championships. Their next playoff appearance was in 2017. They only lost 2 games all postseason, and you guessed it, they won the Frontier League championship again. In 2021, they lost a total of 3 postseason games, but not consecutively, and they went on for their 4th title. In 2022, the Boomers won the wild card game over the Evansville Otters and swept the divisional round over the Washington Wild Things, bringing their historic postseason record to 10-0 in series before finally losing a series to the Quebec team in the championship. So, I mean, what a phenomenal. We talk about that Cougars run, and I know we're on, Truth About Chicago Sports right now, and this is not On the Rise, but this is a little plug for our show. This is a little taste of what you can get when you wake up early on Saturday mornings and tune in to On the Rise.
From 8 to 10.
Yeah, in 2023, the Boomers lost the wild card game to Evansville, so the Boomers are 10-2 in postseason series, and we hope that they can have a similar run to the Cougars next year, and maybe the Cougars go back-to-back. You never know. So
never know.
We're in for a lot of good baseball, even if it isn't at this major league level. And even this major league level has some changes going on.
I got nothing.
No.
I want to say that there's going to be good things on the horizon with the Chicago Cubs, but at this point, I'm in wait-and-see mode already.
Well, the only possible good thing on the horizon, I think, for this Chicago White Sox team is...
Don't say it. Don't say it.
That pipe dream of a new field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you threw me a curveball there.
The White Sox have the Lot 78 property in the South Loop. If you're confused as to why it's called the 78, it was supposed to be Chicago's 78th community, 78th little town. It's a land right along the Chicago River, a branch of the Chicago River. As I mentioned, it's in the South Loop, and it's undeveloped. Well, the White Sox started some kind of development on there, but it's not quite the renderings that baseball fans, Sox fans saw as what could be the future possible White Sox stadium. Oh, wow, right? It's this grand stadium that the outfield overlooks the city skyline, and don't get me wrong, I am enticed by this. But where are the numbers? Where's the funding coming from? Jerry Reinsdorf and the White Sox have said it is not going to be from them, and they are also asking the city for about $1 billion in taxpayer money in order to get this stadium built.
Good luck with that, because Governor Pritzker has already said that that's not going to happen because they have other allocations for the funds.
Yeah.
So good luck, you billionaire D-bag, where you're not going to put any of the funds in your team, in your stadium, or however you want to work it. You're just a cheap ass.
Well,
go ahead, Mike.
They spared no expense building this little pop-up field that I don't believe is even full dimensions to give investors a look at what could possibly be. The White Sox brought in their famous groundskeeper, the Sodfather, Roger Bossard, and he built this little pop-up stadium that investors had a boat tour that dropped them right off at the 78, and then they got a chance to play catch with Chicago alumni, Chicago White Sox alumni. And, it was a nice show, but even after the fact, a lot of these alumni were basically saying, it's all nice and it's fun, and we got to meet a couple of alumni and play some catch out on this field, but there's still no solid plan or proposal from this White Sox team to build the entertainment district that they want to there, which includes the stadium, it includes all the restaurants and all that would accompany this, that everybody's trying to go to an entertainment district, and the funds that you alluded to are probably the funds that the city was going to be putting aside for the Chicago Bears. Now, as I mentioned, Jerry Reinsdorf is pushing for about $1 billion in public funding for the project, including a tax increment financing district, an extension of the 2% hotel tax increase to renovate Soldier Field, and new sales tax overlay district around the 78.
Yeah, because this is how billionaires become billionaires and stay billionaires. They want everyone else to contribute other than themselves.
Yeah, they're not going to dig into their pockets, as you mentioned. So
yeah, and probably the best thing about this baseball season, for me, probably for
is
you
when
too.
It's over.
Yeah.
How did I know you were going there? Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Well, another season, I know we only have a couple minutes here to go, but another season that just wrapped up, unfortunately, was the Chicago Sky. They were 13-22 and barely holding on to that 8th and final playoff seed, but then some injuries to Angel Reese on her wrist, and
there you go.
Diamond DeShields. Last Wednesday, the Sky lost 89-58 against the Washington Mystics, who were battling for that 8th seed with them. Friday the 13th, it was a tough opponent, the Minnesota Lynx, who had also won the Commissioner's Cup. They were 28-9 coming into this one. They were in second place in the WNBA. That was an 83-66 loss. That's the second straight loss for Chicago, 5th straight win for Minnesota. And then Chicago dropped out of that final playoff spot. They did not recover. They lost Sunday back at home against the Phoenix Mercury, who were in 7th place and clinched their spot. 93-88 was the final score. Kennedy Carter and Camila Cardoso were injured in this one. So a lot of injuries for this Sky team. Tuesday night in Gateway Center, they were facing the Atlanta Dream. They lost that one. This was an interesting conundrum because Atlanta, Chicago, and the Washington Mystics were all battling for that 8th and final playoff seed. The first 7 playoff seeds were clinched. All the other teams below them had been eliminated. It was just these 3 teams with practically the same record. And unfortunately, Chicago falls in all of their final games. They go on a 5-game losing streak to end the season, and they fall out of that final playoff spot. So no playoffs for the Chicago Sky. And, in a perfect world without injuries, the Sky team could probably hold on to that 8th seed, be a playoff team. But we've seen from our men's basketball team in town that being a sub-500 playoff team really doesn't mean anything. It's not like hockey where every team you get a shot to dance in the dance. In the WNBA and the NBA's case, I think you really have to be a powerhouse to have any kind of contention aspect. And we saw the Sky win their championship title in 2021, and that's grand. And I'm sure, they're recovering from, a lot of pieces being missing now from that championship team, maybe having to retool or rebuild. But this is a new era of the WNBA, and they had some high draft picks. It's imperative for this Chicago team to represent itself in a great way, unlike the Bulls, who finish in the play-in round each year, sub-500, as I mentioned, and call that a successful season. And then they do nothing to improve things in the offseason, which is why we don't have any Bulls news.
Yeah, it's a little tough when your top star goes out for an extended period of time to mount any sustainable offense and everything. Unfortunate for that. Well, Mike, it's been 4 hours. We're going to be wrapping up. For Mike Napolitano, I am Derek Geyer. You are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. I just want to say a special thank you to Nick Johnston for handing me notes, producing, Matt McNeil on the board. And up next is Chief Guard of the Republic. And you are listening to AM 1410 WRMN. Tune in next week for On the Rise, 8 to 10.
Full menu at twinzeros.com. Twin Zeros Restaurant